We now bring in the chairperson of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee in the Senate, Samsom Cherargei, who's also the Nandi senator, is joining us live from Eldoret. A very good morning to you. Thank you very much for making time for us here on KTN News Center. I mean, let's just start with your reactions. A lot has been happening, especially towards the judiciary and the manner in which they have been making their decisions. The CS is currently receiving backlash over remarks he made about the judiciary. What are your thoughts?
Thank you for having me and good morning. I want to say on the issue, this constitution that we have today is very progressive. Under Article 10 of the Constitution, in the principles of good governance and national values, one of the key aspects is the issue of rule of law. And I think on this issue of the judiciary and executive, I think some of the issues that were raised by the CS of Interior, Matiang'i, was to some extent was valid, because the judiciary should be alive to the fact that they can be criticized, not in an unfair way, but in a very formal way. But I think it should have gone to the appeal, and I think CS Matiang'i and others who are the court orders were served, that were served against them should have just appealed, and I've seen. I'm happy they have gone back to the courts and ensured that they have appeal. Secondly, I think judiciary, and I think the CJ, Chief Justice David Maraga, should be aware that judiciary, like any other institution, must come under criticism, must be focused, because this is part of accountability. The only aspect we'll only differ is when you discuss a matter which is already in court. And I think these are just politics between the judiciary and the executive. But at the end of the day, we appreciate that judiciary should be independent. And I want to say, Akisa, that, for example, some of those issues are illegal, because if you are issuing a court order that inhibits or prohibits maybe the Interior Ministry from maybe eradicating illicit brew, and yet the person you are giving, because he has invested millions of shillings to continue selling that illicit brew, and yet there is a court order to give him that power, then we are being unfair. And therefore, the fourthly, Akisa, is that some of these court orders issued, they must be enforced. But when they are not enforced, it doesn't embarrass the executive, but it embarrasses the judiciary. So at the end of the day, we must agree that judiciary and executive are both independent institutions, and there is a doctrine of separation of powers. Yeah. But at the end of the day, they must be respectful in terms of engaging it.
Yes, yes. You talk about the judiciary being respectful in terms of engagement. You say that Dr. Fred Matiang'i, in his own right, had a right to say what he said in that particular committee. But knowing the manner in which our justice system works, there is a procedure where when you're unhappy with a particular order, there's a higher court where you can voice this concern or put up a case in appeals court or a higher court. Why are we not saying this? Why are we prosecuting it in the court of public opinion instead of using the very own justice system that we have?
I agree, Akisa, that the fact, that's why I said in my earlier remarks, is that I'm happy that Dr. Matiang'i and the rest, the IG Boynet and PS Kahalangwa, have already appealed that decision of Justice Odunga when they issued against being fined 200,000 each. So they have already appealed, which is important, they have known. But what I'm saying is that we cannot just prevent anybody from criticizing judiciary, but they should do it in a respectful manner, but not prosecuting either of the institutions, be it executive or judiciary, in opinion or public court in terms of that. But I think the CS, also should be aware that judiciary, if there are any things that you want to raise, it is better some of these issues are raised within the justice system. But my main concern, or my main point, Akisa, is that we must agree that judiciary as an institution must be held accountable. And at the end of the day, so long as it is not affecting the court process that is already, or a court case that is in place, they should allow themselves to be criticized, but in a respectful, in a meaningful way, to ensure that Kenyans can also have an opportunity of engaging. Because if the judiciary will say today, don't criticize us, don't speak in bad light about us, then it means you are gagging the public from engaging to the decisions and judgments that the judiciary is made. But I agree that they have already appealed, which is a good thing. If they have not appealed, then it would be very unfortunate, because you cannot criticize stabilize the system, and then that system you need to complement each other, because judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. For example, Akisa, some of us, even the parliament is always criticized by all and sundry. So it doesn't make judiciary lesser by being criticized based on the decisions that they make.
That it needs to be criticized with respect. From some of the views we had from Dr. Fred Matiang'i the other day when he was before that committee in the National Assembly, terming the judiciary as evil. Given how powerful the docket he heads is this a manner in which we should be seeing leaders describe the judiciary? From where you sit, do you think some of the words used to describe the judiciary, is it undermining the confidence that Kenyans have on the judiciary?
No, on that, when the CS, I think that was the low moment for us who know how judiciary operates or how know our governance institutions operate. I think, and it is very unfortunate the CS could use the word evil in terms of, and I think that is very, very, very unfortunate, and I think that was the low moment in that engagement with parliamentarians. I would have expected the chair of National Security and Defense at the National Assembly at least to ensure that Dr. Matiang'i withdraws that statement so that it cannot be captured in that search of the parliament, because if you use that word, I agree with you that it undermines the confidence of the judiciary. But so I think maybe because I think the emotions run high, and I think because they have been accused, as you have heard the CS say, they have been called Lord of Impunity. And I think as the CS, which heads a very important docket, I think some of our words as leaders we should ensure measured, even as politicians, even as parliamentarians, and every leader should ensure, even if I'm criticizing institution, even if I'm criticizing executive, even if I'm criticizing judiciary or even parliament, I should do it in words that should not demean, should not undermine the confidence of Kenyans they have in judiciary. And I think the use of that word evil, I think I will not agree with it. And I think the CS should take responsibility and at least withdraw and apologize on that word of evil. At least he should have looked for a better word, maybe even so of saying, I don't have confidence in judiciary, or we need the judiciary to relook, because he has an opportunity of engaging with judiciary if they are uncomfortable with the decisions that the judiciary and judgments that are being made, because those court orders sometimes anyway always inhibit the work of executive or any other organ of governance organs that we have in this country. So I think I don't agree with the excessive use of that word, because it is unfair, it erodes the confidence, and it demeans some of these institutions we have in this country.
As we talk about this, currently at the National Assembly, there is a petition that has been presented by Kenyans seeking for the ouster of the CS based on, one, the manner in which he has been handling court orders in the country. I mean, from where you sit, do you think he is unsuitable to hold office?
I have not read the contents of that petition. I'm told he's a businessman who has petitioned Parliament to remove the CS of Interior. I think it is still early to judge some of our CSs. I know there are many challenges, even in agriculture sector. Even as we talk, even farmers in this region, we have been very uncomfortable with how the CS of agriculture is operating in terms of fertilizer subsidy that we have in this region. And therefore, we have not reached that level to demand his resignation or to demand away. But I think the grounds that have been raised, I have not privy to that petition. But we will, I hope we'll have an opportunity of looking at that. I think having the history of CS Matiang'i, having worked in the Ministry of Education, he did a good job. But what we are saying is that the ministers or the CSS, cabinet secretaries, must ensure that one of the tenets of this constitution is the respect of other institutions and respect of the rule of law. So what we are challenging them is that even if there is petition, all Kenyans have right to petition Parliament, be it the National Assembly or the Senate, but we look at the merit of that petition. If there has valid grounds, if it is abrogating the constitution, if it is violating the constitution, if those issues are being raised, then the law is very clear that you must exit. But I think at this point, I think the CS should be at least be given more time so that he can prove himself. I think the only aspect is, which is a very serious crime, a case, I agree, disobeying a court order is a contempt of court, which is a very serious crime. So I hope one of the petition grounds that has been raised is one that, and I think the threshold of such is they should be a way or a mechanism of ensuring that a particular civil servant or even a CS should be held accountable in terms of disobeying court orders or not following the court orders that are in place. But I wish I will be privy with those petitions. Maybe there are many more serious issues that have been raised. Then from there we can discuss.
Thank you very much for making time for us here on KTN News Center. That is Moses Cherargei, is the senator for the county of Nandi, as well as the chairperson of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee at the Senate, just giving us his views on an array of issues, one of them being the seemingly strenuous relationship currently between the executive and the judiciary, and the judiciary coming under fire over some of the court orders they have been issuing